Maziar Bahari is an Iranian-Canadian journalist and filmmaker. He was a reporter for Newsweek from 1998 to 2011. Mr. Bahari graduated with a degree in communications from Concordia University in Montreal in 1993. Soon after, he made his first film, The Voyage of the St. Louis, 1994. He has produced, or as they say in Montreal, Saint Louis. He has produced a number of documentaries and news reports for broadcasters around the world, including BBC, Channel 4, HBO, Discovery, Canal+, NHK. Bahari's films include Paint No Matter What, Football Iranian Style, and Along Came a Spider, Mohammed and the Matchmaker, Targets Reporters in Iraq, Greetings from Sadr City, Online Ayatollah, The Fall of a Shah, 2009, and An Iranian Odyssey. That's a lot of films. Mr. Bahari has been a jury member of a number of international film festivals, and a retrospective of Mr. Bahari's films was organized by the International Documentary Film Festival, Amsterdam, in November 2007. During the 2009 Iranian election protests, he was arrested without charge and detained for 118 days. In September 2009, Bahari was nominated for the Prince of Asturias Award for Concord. Bahari's family member, Then They Came for Me, was published by Random House in June 2011. Please welcome our featured speaker, Maziar Bahari.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad that we're starting late, because otherwise it wouldn't be an Iranian program. And I'm also going to do something for the first time. I'm going from my iPad to save the environment and, to pay for Steve Jobs' treatment. And I'm also going to talk as a reporter, as a journalist. I'm sorry that maybe there's so many people who are discriminated against that, who might be missing in my speech, so I'm going to mostly concentrate on journalists and reporters. Being a reporter in Iran is one of the most insecure jobs in a country run by one of the most insecure governments in the world. The Islamic Republic has made journalists its prime target. More than 100 journalists and bloggers have been arrested since the disputed presidential elections in 2009. The thugs at the helm of the regime are trying hard to prove that they can control the lives of each and every citizen. In the age of the internet and satellite television, the Iranian government is trying hard to change the tide of history, and mobile phones, of course. It wants to take back Iran to the era of shortwave radio and terrestrial television, media that it can easily control and censor. You should not break a mirror because it shows your faults. You should change yourself, goes the Persian saying. A wise government would listen to the voices of its own people. The Iranian government shoots the messenger. The Islamic Republic, in my opinion, was a bad idea to start with. By including the adjective Islamic, it automatically alienated millions of Iranians. Nonetheless, what we are witnessing in Iran today is neither Islamic nor a republic. Its actions are contrary to Islamic teachings of kindness and mercy. And by having a tyrant at its helm, it has negated all the democratic and inclusive promises of its founder, Ayatollah Khomeini, made before coming to power. Many of you in the audience may never believed in those promises, but many people did, and that's why they came to the streets. Since the disputed elections in June 2009, the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, has decided to do away with all democratic pretensions and establish a militarized dictatorship with the help of the Revolutionary Guards. It is an attempt which will ultimately be defeated by the Iranian people. The current Khamenei Guards project may take a few years or even a few decades to fail, but as we have witnessed all over the Middle East region, the Iranian government will finally be defeated by young Iranians demanding democracy, human rights, and freedom of expression and religion. It is important to step back and look at how did we get here. After the victory of the popular Islamic Revolution in 1979, the new government managed to maintain a certain level of legitimacy. The traditional religious masses supported the government. While the regime stifled many voices of dissent, it allowed some opposition activists and newspapers, human rights lawyers and journalists to survive and continue criticizing the government with a certain degree of impunity, certain degree being the operative word here. The regime did so because the gap between the educated elite and the traditional religious masses was so wide that the government did not feel really threatened by those who oppose its ineffective and authoritarian governance. The opposition had very little influence on the thinking and actions of the majority of people. In the pre-internet era, many increasingly educated Iranians felt helpless and thought their efforts would be futile because they simply did not have a chance to communicate with the outside world or even with their own people. In fact, when the mouthpieces of the government ridiculed the opposition as being elitist, they were somehow telling the truth. Many of us remained silent while the rights of our compatriots were trampled. Our Baha'i brothers and sisters have a right to be disappointed with many members of Iranian opposition who remained silent while Iranian Baha'is were treated as second-class citizens and were deprived of their most basic rights. Many of us only started to recognize the rights of others only when the regime came after us, hence the title of my book. In a sense, through its indiscriminate campaign of terror, the regime has woken up the numb consciousness of many Iranians and has been its own worst enemy. Since the late 1990s, the internet and satellite television brought the knowledge that was in the monopoly of a selected group of educated elite to a greater number of Iranians. That gap between the elite and the masses quickly narrowed, and that frightened the government. The protest of millions of people against Ahmadinejad's re-election in June 2009 was a clear manifestation of that narrowing gap. I was on the streets of Tehran during those days. The demonstrators were not all secular, educated, westernized individuals, middle-class individuals. There were many factory workers, housewives, and farmers in the protests. In the absence of any clear vision for the future of the country and looking for a quick fix, the regime chose to blame the media for steering the people. The government particularly tried to incriminate Western media for trying to create a velvet revolution, such as those in Czechoslovakia, Ukraine, and Georgia. After the June 2009 presidential elections, the takeover of the government by the Guards gained a new momentum. They took charge of all cultural activities in the country, as well as the intelligence apparatus. The Guards started doing what they do best, suppressing dissent with violence. And a little bit about my own experience. The Guards arrested me 9 days after the election, and for the next 118 days, I witnessed an ignorant, confused regime trying to fight its own people through sheer paranoia. My interrogator told me, there is no difference between journalism and intelligence gathering, he said. You gather and report information. That is exactly what a spy does. During those 118 days, I heard, because I was mostly blindfolded, so many ridiculous ideas and outlandish interpretation of what is going on in the world that at the end, nothing surprised me. For some reason or another, my interrogator had a fascination with New Jersey. Yes, the state of New Jersey. I'm not sure why. I never managed to ask him why. But to him, New Jersey sounded like paradise on earth. He maybe was a big fan of Sopranos or the Jersey Shore, I don't know. But he thought that whatever happens to people in paradise, including eating the forbidden fruit, copulating with as many women as you want, orgies and drinking alcohol, was happening in New Jersey. He liked to do them himself, but of course he couldn't. He was upset that I had been to New Jersey and that he had never been there. So I was not only a spy, I was a spy who had been to New Jersey. Of course, the memory of those days is funny in hindsight. When you're in dark interrogation room and you're blindfolded and you're subjected to beatings and tortures, as I was, and as many of my colleagues in Iran are, your interrogator's ignorance is far from being funny. I can say these words on this platform because of the support I received from the international community. I was lucky enough to be working for Newsweek, which was owned by Washington Post Company at that time. My colleagues went beyond their call of duty and rallied their contacts in the international media and diplomatic community for my release. The fact that I was finally freed, albeit on bail, shows that the Iranian regime is not indifferent to negative publicity as it pretends to be. In fact, letting me out of Evin prison proves that it is wrong to treat the regime as a monolith. There are still some powerful individuals within the regime who care about the world's public opinion and, for very selfish reasons, act responsibly when they think it is expedient to do so. There are various and at times clashing forces at work within the Islamic Republic. There are, of course, those ideological zealots who still dream of exporting Ayatollah Khamenei's revolution to the rest of the world and bestow Ayatollah Ali Khamenei the supreme leadership of the universe. Just imagine Mike Myers' Dr. Evil with more facial hair and, not as funny. So that would be the supreme leadership of Ayatollah Khamenei. But there are also relatively more logical groups in the regime who would like to have better relations with the rest of the world. These relatively more reasonable individuals, again, relatively is the operative word here, are silent about the atrocities committed in the country, either out of fear or opportunism. As human rights activists, we need to understand this dynamic and try to use it to the advantage of Iranian people of all backgrounds. We need to prove to these relatively logical individuals that they live in the comfort of a sinking ship. They need to understand that their long-term interests will be protected if they join the democratic struggle of Iranian people and not in supporting Ayatollah Khamenei, an unreliable despot who can devour them at any point in the future. Iranian officials need to understand that in the 21st century, freedom of the speech, freedom of the press, and having the right to practice your religion of choice are considered as universal and natural rights of human beings. No legitimate government wants to be seen siding with your oppressors. In some cases, governments may not respect human rights out of the goodness of their hearts. But because human rights have become an accepted and inalienable right of all people, it means that in the long term, human rights is also good for business. Through gatherings such as this one, and informing the media and public all around the world, especially in those countries that have influence on Iran, such as Russia, China, Brazil, and Turkey, we need to raise the cost of violating human rights for the Iranian regime and countries that support it or silent about its atrocities, its abuses and atrocities. Friends, there are close to 2,000 of us in this room, and because many of us are Iranians, we have at least about 4,000 different opinions. But I know for a fact that we all agree on one thing, and that is respecting each other's right to express our opinions peacefully and non-violently. Respecting each other's right to express our opinions is the first step towards a democratic and free Iran. Finally, I have a very modest request. Please make a point of respecting each other's right to hold an opinion for the next few days. I'm not that ambitious. And tell others to do the same. Non-violence and information are two most powerful weapons in our arsenal against the violent thugs who run Iran now. Our voices are heard in Iran, and we can make a difference. Thank you very much.